I'd like to bring finance personnel to order. We'll start off with pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to this year. Had a chance to go over the minutes?
Move them. Second.
First by legislator Twist, or was it Wilbur? Second Twist. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. We have nothing from this month, so I guess we'll jump right into resolutions with PS3. Resolution establishing salary for assistant district attorney positions.
Move it. Second.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Twist. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. PS4, resolution establishing salary for road patrol lieutenant.
Move it.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Mangano.
I always thought it was mine.
Mangano.
I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Well, I'm trying to reprogram my brain on that. Well, yeah, I'm not telling you about it. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. PS5, resolution authorizing budget modification, emergency management office, emergency services, hazardous materials, emergency planning grant.
Move it.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Holt. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. On to HS2. Resolution approving salary modification for one Department of Social Services attorney.
Move it.
First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Lockwood. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much. HS3, resolution authorizing reclassification of 6 positions within the Department of Social Services.
Motion to table.
I have a motion to table and a motion to second. And so we're looking at tabling this for
Till next month.
till next month. Legislator Wilkie?
There were some questions that we had on it. I know that there's been multiple legislators that have had them, and we put out an email, as well. I know the chair has, so, at this point in time, I'd ask to table this until next month.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to table till next month. Any questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. HS6, resolution authorizing budget modification, Department of Social Service to accept New York State Aid Code Blue funds. First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Wilbur. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much. On to EP5. Resolution authorizing budgetary modification, Department of Community Development, Tourism, and Planning, Oswego River Access Project.
Move it.
First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Lockwood. Okay, questions? Legislator Walpole.
This is, you're seeking more money, correct? We applied for and received an extra $12,000 that could be matched against our other grants, so it's no cost at all. The county just gives us more to hopefully reduce any local costs that we have going forward. Like free money this time.
Right.
But there's normally you have to put up our own money to match, but we have a grant that we can match against this one.
Okay, so at this point, we're not committing any county funds.
No, just saying that you would like to accept it and authorize the chairman to sign the papers to disperse it.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. EP6, resolution increasing authorization of capital project number 94, asset replacement.
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Lockwood. Boy, you guys are tough today. Yeah. Okay.
Question.
We'll get to questions, legislator Walpole.
Yes, I know I asked you, Dave, this here, it's a replacement, I understand this is only passed through the OCO. But we may, if there are other people going through the, I know there's some issues, and I was under the impression that excuse me, someone else that did against this regarding the transportation. If so, I would be.
Yeah, no, so, right now under the contract we have with them, they, manage our fleet, so we're grant recipients. They implement the transportation service, and they have always paid the local share for the program, so it hasn't cost us anything. This money specifically is to retire an old bus and replace it with a newer, smaller one to better meet the needs of the routes. As the provider under contract right now, that's why they're listed on here. However, it is time appropriate for us to go out for a new contract, and whether they become the provider again in the future or not, other folks could bid on that kind of fleet management, transportation provider.
So they're managing
service.
our fleet of buses.
Yes.
Understood.
Okay.
As you know, I have several issues. I would
I-
be voting no against this.
And well aware. legislator Walpole, that's
Be
great.
more well aware in the future.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Two opposed.
No, three.
Three opposed. One, two, three. Sorry, we got three and three. Three. One, okay. So we got three opposed. Okay. HE3, resolution to accept opioid mentorship grant from the National Association of County and City Health Officials.
Move it.
Got it first by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. HE4, resolution to reclassify social worker hospice position to senior social worker, Oswego County Health Department. First by legislator Walpole. Second by legislator Mangano. Mangano. It'll take me some time, Lori, I promise.
My God, just close out this one.
I know. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. IT2. Resolution authorizing budget modification to transfer funds from insurance recovery into highway supplies and expenses. First by legislator Walpole. Second by legislator Holtz. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much. Resolution establishing IT3, resolution establishing capital project number 114, County Route 6 Bridge over Catfish Creek. First by legislator Twist. Second by legislator Walpole. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you. IT4, resolution establishing capital project 116, Granite Road Bridge over Scriber Creek. First by legislator Holmes.
Second.
Second by legislator Wilbur. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. Resolution authorizing expenditure from capital reserve number 21, buildings and renovation. First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Lockwood. Any discussion? Any opposed, or all in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you. Resolution authorizing expenditure from capital reserve number 21, buildings and renovations. First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Holtz. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much. Resolution authorizing expenditure of capital reserve number 146, highway and equipment, IT7. First by legislator Walpole,
Second.
second by legislator Twist. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much. On to FB1. Resolution authorizing capital project closures and transfers of project balances.
Move it.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Walpole. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you. FB2, resolution awarding professional services contract and resources department self-insured health program.
Move it.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Walpole. Any questions, discussions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much. Moving on. This is true. This is very true. Okay, Julie. Hi there,
Hi.
you're
So
up.
for vacancy, Office of the Aging, there's an aging services specialist due to a resignation.
Move it.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Walpole. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries.
Okay. Facilities and technology are seeking to hire a temporary senior computer specialist to fill a position that has been long-term, employee's been out unpaid.
First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Twist, this is temporary, correct?
Correct, yes.
Right. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you.
At Highway, there's a heavy equipment operator due to resignation.
We'll, go ahead, Julie, finish this, we're gonna move these in a block.
Okay, medium equipment operator due to a backfill of that resignation of the heavy, and another medium equipment operator due to a resignation.
Okay. So I have a first to move in the block from legislator Walpole, second from legislator Twist. All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you.
At probation, the senior probation officer due to a retirement, and the backfill for probation officer for promotional purposes.
I'm moving the block.
Okay, first by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator Walpole. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries. Next,
Okay, social services, the director of social services due to a resignation, an employment specialist due to a resignation, typist due to a resignation, and because the reclassifications of the clerk position to typist was tabled to fill the clerk vacancy due to a resignation back to the original clerk position.
okay. Okay, sure. Move for discussion by legislator Walpole,
One second. Let's just- here's
second by
one.
legislator Wilbur.
Go ahead, one of your people go.
Yes, Carrie Benson, who has been with us for a little more than 2 years, is taking a new job. And so I'm the interim director of services overseeing child protective, foster care, preventive, adoption, adult services.
Understood.
Just one more hat, right? Nothing else, right?
So I get paid the big bucks. Okay, so we have a first and a second, so we do them in a block? As a block, okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
At the sheriff's department, a patrol officer lieutenant due to retirement and the backfill of a sergeant as well as a patrol officer for promotional purposes, all backfilled. Correction officer sergeant due to a backfill for promotional purposes, and correction officer for that backfill, and an account clerk promotional purposes for a backfill.
Right, so, okay, first by legislator Wilbur as a block, Wilbur as a block, second legislator Walpole. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At solid waste, there's a maintenance mechanic B position opening due to a termination of employee.
First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Wilbur. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries, thank you.
Okay, and county clerk has 2 motor vehicle clerk positions due to retirement.
First by legislator Walpole, second by legislator Mangano.
Hey.
Good job, Martina. Tell me about it. Okay, first and second, we'll move as a block. All, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. Okay. You wanna do, you wanna talk about your reorganizational chart?
Yeah, there was a memo sent in January to all department heads, and it's an annual thing that our department does to distribute the current org charts that we have to all department heads, and we ask that they be reviewed and returned to us by, I believe, next Friday is the deadline date, so I just ask that all department heads return those to us so that we can update, and then once we get them, I guess, finalized, we send them back to the department as well as all of the legislators and the county administrator.
Thank you.
On that, I know in before we've gotten a paper copy and then that big folder.
Mhm.
Is there any way we can get these for on our tablets?
We can do that.
Chris, can we get them loaded so we can just push our tab? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Where is he?
Okay,
He's
so,
usually over here somewhere.
thank you, real quick, what I did this year, just to cause confusion, because the calendar ended, I went from January to January with sales tax. And that's how the state kind of reports it in the paper, however, we have to file differently, so we still haven't completed last year's, we still have some checks to receive, so don't get you in the weeds too deep, I just want to do January to January. It appears it was, about $1,077,000 for a total of 48 million, you'll see on the bottom, which is actually almost 3 million better than the year before even. So definitely a good year. However, you'll notice the first 2 checks that came in this year, we're losing money. So we'll see how it plays out. So if we look, I also included the actual, which is what we have to report to the state. You'll notice down below at the bottom right, we're 120,000 less as last year, as reported actuals. So how do you want to play the numbers? Accounting, we know, right? How you want to look at it. So the state reports that we're doing good, but when we send out our AUD, we'll see what happens with our annual report. and may show something different, don't panic. It's really the same numbers, you're just missing a couple, probably about a month is transferred from one year to the next. So overall, still was great. I still think it was a great year for sales tax. We'll see how this year goes. Not starting out too strong, but we'll see what happens. That's also with the AIM payments taken out. So still pretty good. Let's see here. Capital reserves. Where are you? Running about 8.6 million. Did a great job. That was pretty close to last year's. Remember when we closed out? Not working. There we go. Bureau task reserves. I'm hoping Phil's gonna clean this up so I don't have to report this anymore pretty soon. It's about 15,000 left. On that. And there's definitely a delay in. Okay, so really moving on to the 3+1 liquidity analysis. I think everyone that was here remembers that you approved was $5,000 to seek out, check our liquidity and where our money is. The report has been sent to all legislators, and you have the findings. They're very positive. You know, shows that we can, if we do our job pretty good, we can get about $1 million this year, and who knows how much next year. It's all based on points and, you know, where we're moving money to. It's pretty interesting if you get deep into the report, where they found what they can help us with. And definitely a great investment for $5,000.
It's good to see that.
And actually, the one thing I do want to mention is now you know where our money is. So if anyone comes up and says, you know, the treasurer got some hidden here, there, everywhere, it's all out in the open. You have it. You can look at it. You can come back and ask, do we move any? What I'm going to do probably within the next couple months is we're looking at some really good movement, potential movement of money. I'm going to come from this group, make sure you understand and you approve it before I do anything, so you know acting on my own. And again, no, we're not going to invest in junk bonds in Venezuela and in Brazil. So, okay, now this is the next thing is the general code. What this is for, and again, I sent you everybody the contract. All legislators the contract. This is to kind of move into the next realm of community college and hotel tax. Forget the word. And what it's going to do is put everything online. This company has worked with other counties, a lot smaller than us, and it's done similar to what we're doing today, but they haven't moved to the next realm. From when talking with other treasurers, nobody does this. It's not off the shelf anywhere. So we're going to develop it ourselves. We're going to have a database. We're going to have information so that we can go back to NISAC or the state and say, hey, this is what's happened with students and where they're coming from. It gives you more. It'll give you more of a detail and a great database. Same with the hotel tax. Everything's going to be online. They don't have to come in. We don't have to mail anything. Sorry, Phil. Just saying that. So don't, but everything. So with that, the hotel owners can go right from their laptops in their offices. And I just got to incorporate how to pay it. I got to work with some banks to see. We'll have everything online. They don't have to mail anything. And just download the amount into a bank account, and then we'll make it accessible so Dave can see at any minute where we stand, or Rich, or whoever wants. I mean, whoever legally can see that.
Yeah.
Same with community college. The goal for community college is have these students be able to do it from the phone or from their home. No more do they have to bring their parents in to verify that they live with them. It's it's going to be a pretty aggressive ask. But from what I see, from what the contract offers, there is an out if they can't provide it. But I believe we're going to be good. That gets the students a great way to just get out of the office and they don't get all upset. They can do it from the phone. So that's what I asked for. I'm asking, and it's coming from my budget as well as some hotel tax money that I promised that I would utilize for that purpose.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
So I asked for support.
You'll have support.
You haven't voted yet.
Do we have to vote on that? Do we have to vote on that?
Yeah,
The contract will need to be
Yeah.
approved by the legislature, but I don't know if we've seen, I haven't.
No, I'm going to run it through you first before the
Yeah,
legislature.
we do the resolution and.
That was the
Okay, so-
resolution you sent us.
So,
Yep. Yep.
okay. So, You wanna vote on it now?
The resolution that I sent you to go. I
Okay, so we go to.
did all the work for you, just have to.
I'll make it.
Okay, we have a first from legislative Twist and a second from legislative Walpole, providing the contract is all good through our county attorney.
That was my
That's
question, to
fine. Yeah,
make
I
sure
mean, I'm
that
willing-
Rich and the county administrator were going to.
Okay, well,
And it's the same resolution that we got
Yeah.
last week or.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and this, the company that we're dealing with is on the statement contract, so.
as long as
Any
it-
questions?
so we've got a
Company
first one.
hotel tax, the individual returns are secret, it's a misdemeanor under the local law to, and I think state tax law can disclose those, but the, you know, the aggregate numbers for the county, obviously, what has been disclosed previously, and that's what would be, continue to be released.
Nope, all the same.
Okay, so I have a first and a second. Any other discussion on this? Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
And finally, the last thing is, due to, what we're asking you just to support is, the ability for us to set up, kind of miscellaneous GL accounts for all departments. What we're finding is that we're receiving checks in from all over and have no idea where they go, what account code, what GL account. And, so what we're asking is if they come in, we don't know where they're gonna go, we're not gonna chase anyone around, we're gonna put it into that department's, miscellaneous account, and then they can move it as they see fit. Or they can contact us, we'll work with them, but right now, because of the grants that are out there, some departments are doing a great job of letting us know what grants are out there, so when they come in, it's easy to allocate it. But if you don't receive the information prior, we're just sitting there and then we have to call everybody, call around and find out where the money is allocated.
But how do you know where it's, how do you know when it comes in, what
It,
department
it's
it's from?
directed, it says where it's directed from. So it comes with a letter, but it'll just be a check from so-and-so. It doesn't say where that department wants to put it. Unlike when you get a notice, for me, like I had some signed from OFA, they give me a copy of everything. I give it over to the accountants, and then they know where to place the money. So, yeah,
Why isn't it going to the department first, or is that something that the state agencies or whoever they're getting it from?
that becomes us. I mean, it would be nice if they wanted to go, because we're the ones that handle it right now. There's no, I don't believe there's not very many that have access to do that, the budget matters.
Just seems.
I know they're doing a policy change.
Is that legal to put so many different things in one account like that for the
not so
accountability
many.
to track what's there?
No, it's not gonna be many things, there's not a lot going in there, and there's not a lot of departments. It's just a miscellaneous, and if it sits there dormant for a while, obviously, the department's gonna move it, and they're not gonna let it sit there, and they're gonna be able, and we'll work with them through the process.
Well, so basically what you're proposing is set up like a holding account in each department for, say, grants that come in, and that's where the money sits until the legislature votes on a budget amendment to move it into the correct lines. They're supposed to accept the money.
Or, right, yeah, or if it's been accepted already, we get the checks after too.
But when it's already been accepted, that's usually where the budget amendment already says where the lines are. So this would really only apply to ones that have not yet been accepted.
Right. See,
Where does the money go now? Where does it sit now?
we have to contact whoever the department is and try to figure out where they want it to go. The big thing is, and you've been very helpful in this, is that with these grants that departments get, when we do every audit that I've been in, which is one that a couple here in the treasurer's department, they tell us every time, you have to understand where the grants are coming from the department. So we've always reached out to the department saying, hey, what grants do you foresee coming in? So that we have a list. And you've actually sent out emails that have been very supportive of that key thing to do. Guess what? It's not always being done. So if this happens, and then after a while, maybe the departments that are affected will say, you know what? Just send them the paperwork and we send them a copy of what's going to Albany, and then we take care of it.
Well, it sounds like there's an underlying issue before.
You know what, 2 years, we can take them to the water, but I'm not saying they're all departments, I'm not saying there's any certain department, it's a universal problem. that until we see the impact, by being able to move this money over instead of chasing the departments around. Like I said, I don't think it's a huge issue, but it's an issue that can be addressed very shortly by putting it into a holding account. And
So once
you'll be
you-
able to see it and.
Yeah, so once you have the holding account, you will notify the department it's there and ask for them, where's this eventually gonna go? And generate the resolution for the legislature to accept the money.
Yeah, that, or they can do that, or they can take it themselves.
Because once it's in a budgetary account in the department, they can't, and I can't move anything more than 10,000. It's gonna have to go to the legislature.
That's fine, but if we get something in, we need a place to put it instead of chasing people around. So, that's exactly right.
You're saying the issue isn't so much that there isn't a revenue line in the department for a grant, but that you don't know which grant goes in which revenue line? Is that,
Right.
is that understand?
There's a lot of,
Jason.
I'm speaking for our fiscal officer, Veronica Turner, who's busy closing books down end of the year. I know we get revenue from our planning process. I think the treasurer perceives that as grants. Grants mean something different to me, but you know, it's that nuance of language. So we claim sometimes revenue, sometimes all in one big chunk. And so what we have to do is go in and kind of tease out in those big checks what goes into different accounts, because these are all obligated funds in a accrual accounting world. So if we could just have an offline conversation about how that might impact our particular budget. I know there has been confusion on some of our checks sent over to health or health sent over to, I mean, we could certainly give you, you know, the dozens and dozens of claiming pieces. You do sign off on all the claims before they're sent, but I recognize these are all codes, you know, nothing's that clear like a bridge
So you're saying,
project.
so this would work well for something like that purpose, is what you're saying? That
I'm not
that it would go
sure.
into that account until you were able to figure out where everything had to go?
No, we know where it should go, it's just working collaboratively. I don't know about this going into a general ledger account though, under our budget. I would rather have Veronica be able to give some prayerful thought to that, because there is things about commingling funds, so I'm not sure. Phil might know more. I think we just need to powwow a little bit, you know, talk a little bit about how we, how that would work, because of the very highly regulated and very complex and convoluted claiming system we're under. And we want to make sure we get every single last federal.
Well,
Right.
obviously. So, can we have a month on this to get it straightened out? I mean, this is not we have to
I'm
do this.
gonna tell you, I'm not gonna be kind, because it's a big problem. So I will, if need be, I'll bring examples and then I'll hone out where the problem lies. And, if you want that, then I can take it one. This was just merely to isolate, to have an understanding of what the problem is, and isolate it, and try to figure out if it is a problem or it's not. And, if you wanna take a couple months, that's fine.
I'm not even saying a couple months, I'm just
No,
looking
because
at,
I will be here next month, and, Robin will be presenting some stuff. I mean, she can probably even speak on that if you want her to,
okay,
but,
Perhaps if we have till next month, that'd give a chance for Veronica.
right, and I just
I
wanna make sure.
certainly
that-
don't
get
want
our-
anybody
I
to
just-
change or
No,
blame.
no, it ain't that,
there's no, it's not even
It's not even that, I just wanna make sure that if we're gonna be able to, if we set this, if we're able to set this account up, I wanna make sure we're doing it legally and with no issues.
The right way.
As long as, yeah,
legally, I can set it up. I just
legally,
thought I'll give you a point, so I'll consider that, and we'll see if we bring it back next month.
okay, yeah, no, definitely, because we'll get a little more information in the meantime, and we'll definitely bring it forth next month.
If
We'll bring
there's
it back.
issues, checks are gonna be cashed.
Checks aren't gonna get
Well,
cashed.
if there's issues, we're gonna probably hold them and see
probably wouldn't make them squeak.
Yeah.
Just as a clarification, you're not talking like every check, this is the odd check, that
No,
we don't know where it goes type thing.
It's
So
very
this is
small,
not some big.
pretty
deal.
minimal, and it's not even, it's not widespread by no means.
I gotta believe DSS is in that pool though. I gotta believe because ours come in such, I mean, it takes us with, you know, we know all the codes to kind of pull it out and put it where it belongs. But
Well,
Seems
let's
like
let the
they would-
legislature and everybody understand it much better and clearer, and then, you know, if it's, you know, as supportive as you say it is, let's go from there. I mean, let's, you know, if it sounds like a great idea, I'd support it 110%, as long as we
So
can make it
will
work
we.
for everybody,
Yeah.
so.
So will we.
It seems like a
It's,
really good idea. I mean,
Yeah.
because if you can put it in one account, then they can
Something
get
check
to it,
back to the department, and let them worry about it.
and then that way you can get to it and apply your.
absolutely, I mean, if it's, if
But
it all
again,
works, we're
the way
in.
Kevin's describing it, it's not just you.
No,
So
no, no,
I
no,
wouldn't,
no.
yeah, okay, I'd like to bring this
I'll
back.
make a motion to table.
Well, there's nothing on the table.
It's
Oh,
not
there's
on-
Nothing on the table.
No, it's just he's looking for permission to do so, which will, yeah, I wanna bring it back.
Kevin, I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Kevin, anything else?
that is it.
All right, Bill,
Alright, I'm gonna pass these around. I just need the mouse.
where's the cookies?
We'll have groups up.
Nothing, really?
Phil, do you have the resolution we discussed regarding Medicaid?
It's in that packet.
I would like to compliment the treasurer on sending out this presentation to us.
Okay, this is normally the meeting where you hear me vent about the state budget, and I go through a whole long list of things of how this is gonna hit us hard. And same is true this year, there's a long list of things that are gonna hit us hard, I'm not gonna talk about all of them. Not that they're not important, but there's one overriding proposal in the state budget that, makes everything else pale in comparison and, could, if enacted, really determine the future of this county and every other county, and that's Medicaid. You may have heard that the governor is proposing to make counties start paying for increases in Medicaid costs again. And since I know that 2 or 3 of you went to NISAC and may have heard some of this, I know most of you weren't, and I know there's some new legislators here, so you may not understand the full impact of what Medicaid does to our county budget. And I am gonna start out a little differently than I normally do, because in the governor's presentation, he said a couple things. And in today's newspaper, the state budget director did a column that went statewide that said some of the same things that I want to refute directly. And that using, when it comes to the costs of the federal and state health insurance program known as Medicaid, they're claiming that counties are suffering from a blank check syndrome and they have no skin in the game. What they are saying is that counties control the growth of Medicaid and therefore, but since they've been capped, and we don't have to pay anything more than we ever paid in 2015, that we don't care now, we're just letting everybody come in on Medicaid, ignoring the fact that we have no control over eligibility in Medicaid. State sets that, state expands Medicaid, state mandates healthcare or health worker wages. Everything that drives up Medicaid costs up or down is directed by the federal government and the state. We do not control it here locally. So when they make claims of a blank check syndrome and no skin in the game, no. I know, and you all know, what is written on that check. This is your page 82 in your budget. You can see it on the handouts. This section right here, Department 6102, called Medicaid, MMS, net county cost $23,437,628. That's what's on the check. That's nearly $500,000 every week that the taxpayers of this county send to Albany. So, no skin in the game. Really? Let's take a look at that in terms of our property tax levy. 23.4 million, property tax levy of 45.4. 51.5% of the property tax levy in this county goes to pay this one mandate from the state, pays for Medicaid. Again, no skin in the game. What we do. This is a slide from NISAC. It's in your packets just to explain it a little bit. But Medicaid, due to the increased eligibility and other things, one of the policies the state has passed has expanded and grown in costs over the last few years. And they're looking at a $4 billion deficit in it because of the policies they passed. So, and that's part of the $6.1 billion gap the governor has in, he's trying to make up for in the state budget. Well, 2.5 of that, they have directed that they're going to reconvene a Medicaid redesign team at the state level to try to come up with ways to save $2.5 billion of that $4 billion, and they have 4 weeks to do it. So the likelihood of that is no. Even if they do come up with some ideas, there's been some talk about returning a little bit of discretion back to the counties. They can't return enough discretion to us to meet the parameters that they're placing on us, which I'll go over in a minute. But the other ways he's trying to save money and shift and affect us negatively fiscally is there's something called enhanced FMAP, and that's long and short. It's a federal credit or a benefit, so money that comes back to the counties through the state as a pass-through. It's about 3 years behind. Sometimes those years it's a very big number, $300,000 to $500,000 some years. So his first of his 3-prong attack is to sweep that account, keep it for the state, so that we won't get our federal money. Second, if the counties, and he's throwing in New York City now too, who's not subject to the property tax cap, but now he is on the property tax cap in this rule. The city and the counties have to stay below the 2% property tax cap. If you do, then you're not penalizing, you don't have to pay anything more in Medicaid than that 24 million we're already paying. You're safe. Maybe. Because that all depends on the next one. If you don't make your property tax cap, you have to pay the entire growth over the 2015 amount, so that the state doesn't have to pick it up. And in past years, I think that's, the way we looked at the last 4 years, they would have added $2-3 million to our tax levy. The third prong attack here is not only do you have to stay under the tax cap, but you have to limit the growth of Medicaid in your county to less than 3%. Keep in mind, we don't control that, but it says if it goes over 3, then we have to pay the difference between that 3% growth and whatever it came to. These are not mutually exclusive. So if you stay under the cap, under the property tax cap, you're still subject to this rule too. So you could get hit either way. What the counties around New York State have been doing is taking a look at the history of Medicaid in the county and assembling numbers at NISAC. And it's pretty clear that there's hardly a county in the state that's going to be able to comply with these rules. So the when it comes down to it, every county is going to be paying more. And the amounts that Medicaid, we're talking such big numbers, what the governor's proposal in effect does is make the property tax cap obsolete. Now, they know counties can't comply with this. That's why he's already budgeted $150 million more from counties in his budget, but that's a low number. The upstate counties that have been able to run these numbers. We're looking at, I think it's between about 166 million to upwards of 200 million. New York City alone is going to cost them $1 billion in extra taxes to send to the state for Medicaid. So this is one of those rare instances where the upstate and downstate were on the same side. This is, I think, the most important slide in this presentation. It shows what Medicaid does to a county budget. All right. This first few columns, 2003 through 2006, that's when Medicaid was not capped. We had to pay the full 25% of whatever the cost was. And in 2002 and 3, New York State expanded Medicaid eligibility a lot, like they also have done recently. What those tan bars are the average property tax increases of counties in New York State. So you can see it's almost 12% increase Medicaid caused in 2003, repeated again, well, close to 9% in 2004. See how high those bars are. If those years trigger a memory in you, 2003, 2004, that was this county's budget crisis. It was driven largely by exploding Medicaid costs, where we laid off 10% of the workforce and had 2 years in a row of double-digit tax increases. 2006 and 7, I think it was under Governor Pataki, the state saw what was happening, and they enacted a law that says Medicaid, or counties would only have to pay for 3% of their growth. And you can see what effect that had. The average property taxes started to decline and level up. So it went from an annual growth of property taxes of 7.6 when it was uncapped to 1.82% when the 3% cap was put on. Then under Governor Cuomo, in like 2013-14, as the property tax cap was being formulated, they said, okay, we're going to bring the Medicaid cap down to 0 so that you can make the property tax cap. So by 2015, we no longer had to pay any increases in Medicaid over 2015. Average annual growth in property taxes dropped to 1.5% across the state. That slide shows you that county property taxes are driven by state mandates and state policy, particularly with Medicaid. So those changes they made in Medicaid made that dramatic drop. So under the governor's proposal, we're going to be responsible for over 3% again, or for the whole shot, depending on whether you stay within the property tax or the tax cap or not. They do say there's a hardship waiver, but we don't know what any of the criteria is. So what would it have meant for us? The only way we can kind of project what it might mean for us in the future is to take a look and apply these rules to the last 3 or 4 years. I know you can't see this, maybe I can, but this is the total amount. This is the federal share, the state share, the local share, if nothing was capped. Basically, what we're leading down to is the penalty payment on the far right-hand side and the tax levy impact. So in 2016, we would have had to pay an additional $2.7 million. In 17, Medicaid went down. We would have dropped $1.4 million, maybe, and I'll explain why. In 18, we would have spent $2 million more, and in 19, $1.6 million more. And those would have caused property tax increases of just under 6%, a drop of 1%, 4.5%, and 3.5% would have driven our taxes up. Now, why did this one drop? It's got a little asterisk on it. One of the things in the governor's announcement when he did his budget was that if you stay under the 3% growth, you get 25% of that savings back from the state. Trouble is, none of that is written in the bill language. So we don't know if it's real or not. So if it's not real, then that's just a 0. So what I've got in the packet after talking to the chairman of the committee, majority leader, and legislature chairman, is a resolution opposing what the governor's trying to do. It's modeled on the one NISAC adopted statewide, but it puts in our local information. I worded it a little bit stronger than NISAC did. Well, NISAC's got to be mindful of this variety of perspectives of its membership. So what we'd like to do is ask you to consider passing this so that we can get on. This is timely. We didn't want to wait an extra month to do this because they're holding budget hearings now in Albany. But I don't want to live through a repeat of 2003 and 2004. And if there's any crack in the Medicaid cap allowed, I think that crack's going to be thrown wide open later because they've already got this $4 billion deficit this year. It's projected to repeat itself next year in the state budget. And once they start cracking the door of shifting these costs down to us, they're going to do more. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I'll move the resolution, but I have a question. I have a statement.
All right, so you're moving it?
Yes.
I'm second. I got a second. Legislator Twist.
I'd just like to say on the redesign team, it's pretty telling that he really cares, the governor of this is, cares about what counties are dealing with when he puts one county executive, the Suffolk County executive, on that committee. Everybody else is in relation to healthcare, and a few, the secretaries to the Ways and Means and to the finance committees in both houses in Albany. But it's very unfortunate that we have one county exec on that whole team, and who does it affect the most? The people here who are on the direct lines who are helping to provide the services. I don't think anybody in this room is trying to take the services away. What we're doing in this room is we're trying to say, look at enough's enough. We need to have the tools so we can figure out what that check is going to be for us, what we're filling out in there. I support this resolution for you, and I know I join with my colleagues on that too.
I myself, I was at NISAC. We all had this discussion. We knew that this was coming. This is fully supported through this committee. And I don't foresee any issues with the rest of the legislature as well. Having said that, are there any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Bring it forward.
One last thing. This is the year that we have to ask for a renewal of our sales tax extension. So that request has gone to our state reps. Once they have bill language, then I'll be bringing back to you the home rule request you would ask to make that official.
Okay.
And we're gonna hopefully ask for 3 years instead of 2.
And see how they, yeah. Okay. Advisory boards, I don't believe we have anything. Miscellaneous reports, it's not even a miscellaneous report before we go into executive session. Chris Jones, our clerk, has been working on basically putting a tour together for legislators, especially new legislators. Old legislators are encouraged to attend as well.
What is that to say?
Yes.
Multiple term limits.
Multiple term legislators.
How many times?
Hey, I'm old, I admit. Anyways, I'm sure, Chris, do you have anything you'd like to add?
We'll narrow down the county facilities that the tour will go through, basically send around by bus. We will set up in advance with facilities and tech to kind of give you a walkthrough on some of the building aspects that we're looking at, and then the individual departments to kind of do a walk around. Can't be anything extremely long, there's so many facilities, but I'll try and get information out to everybody soon.
I heard that the sheriff said we can have lunch over in his, yeah.
You're providing lunch. You just gotta spend the night.
Well, I haven't done that. There's others that have. Okay, motion to,
Make a
go
motion.
to executive session,
Second.
lawful, second by legislator Twist.
For collective negotiations to our board, civil service law. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the MOU for the sheriff's department, as drafted by the county attorney and distributed.
First by legislator Wilbur, second by legislator West. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, can I just interrupt one time?
Yes.
I just want to mention, confirm, DSS is the model we want to go by for that one issue, so I'll get you the right way we want to approach it. For the holding accounts, DSS is the model. So even though Stacy seemed like it was her, she's actually the way we want to follow. So just want to tell you, it's everyone. Whatever, so I appreciate it.
I honestly didn't think it was, I honestly didn't, but I think it's a best way, best practice to set it up.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a motion to adjourn, second, all in favor? Any opposed?